Hey guys, this is Matt with Uprising Firearms, and this is Northern Arizona. More snow than they have had in about the last 20 years or so. So today we're going to sit in the shop and tool around with some guns. Let's take a look. So we're in our little shop here today. Take a look at the latest batch of MG34s we got. These come from TNW. They're semi-automatic, fully legal for civilian ownership without any sort of tax stamp. So I'm going to kind of show you what you get when you purchase one of these. They're going to come in a nice, plain, unsuspecting box. It's actually much smaller than you would think. About 45 inches tall. Your gun will come wrapped in bubble wrap like so. Inside the box, you're going to have an owner's manual, 150 round belt section, and this is a letter from the ATF stating that this is compliant. It's a semi-auto gun. It's perfectly legal for you to own in case you ever get stopped and questioned by the authorities. Because obviously, anytime you take one of these things out, you're going to get all sorts of attention. So, important, keep that with you. Put it in the case or whatever you're going to keep with the firearm. Just better to have it. I'd always rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it, sort of thing. So, the really interesting thing with the MG34s that we are getting from TNW is the array of date codes and parts that come on a lot of these things. We have been getting some very nice gems here and there as far as codes. I believe we had a Steyr made gun. There was only like 6,000 made that entire year, so it's extremely rare. We have some milled rare parts that come on some of these guns. Really cool stuff. So let's take a quick look. This poor guy doesn't have a shroud because this is our shop's gun, and currently the shroud is out at a machinist's. He's working on building more of our tripod adapters. Let's just see here. We are building this piece right here. This fits directly onto these Yugo post-war tripods that are designed for the M53 or the MG42. So what we do is remove the original locking head for the Yugo guns, and we install our MG34 headpiece here. It's pretty easy. You can see right here. This cotter pin gets taken out. We push this pin out, slide it out, put the new head back on, slide the adapter back in there in its place, and then get a new cotter pin because they usually get destroyed being put in there. So that's going to be our adapter. So guys, I'm going to show you how this tripod adapter works. Take your favorite MG34. There's a tab right here, and that's generally what locks in your bipod or any of the adapters. So you're going to flip the gun upside down. This is a little difficult at times. There we go. Push that tab down, and the gun locks in place. Now this tripod is adjustable for height. You can stand it up to about shoulder width, or shoulder height, sorry, and it'd be perfect for shooting from standing. It's really nice to get you up off the ground. The other really neat thing is you can pull the bipod off the front and mount the gun here. Again, it's got a tab up front. I generally wouldn't recommend this all the way up front, but if you wanted to hold it from back here and have it supported up there, you could do that. The other interesting thing, and I have even seen this in original World War II photographs, just take your bipod, and attach your gun this way. Gives you a lot better range of motion from this position. Oh, we're losing stuff already. So here's the MG34 with the bipod mounted on the rear position. Looks pretty cool. So as far as the other markings and parts that we had discussed earlier, these guns are not matching parts kits. Finding any MG34 all matched is pretty rare. Some of the firearms will show previous numbers that are lined out, crossed out. You'll have certain firearms with very early war parts on a very late war receiver. See, there's various degrees of markings all over the place. Really just depends on the contractor that did the parts and what era they were made in. So our shop's gun, this one right here, actually came with a pretty early 4-hole shroud gun. Now, if you don't know what that is, the number of holes in the shroud on a standard MG34 look like this. The 4-hole shroud gun has even more holes, and they're stacked completely differently. So usually the early war guns came with that. They're pretty hard to find. I've only seen photos of one other one that's currently working, so we're really happy to get that. So another unusual part received was this Switz marked early bipod. What little information I could find on it was that it was an early contractor for MG34 parts and accessories and the feet tripods. The Waffenamt 572 is not even in many books that I've looked in, but through some forum boards we were able to find some information about them. So let's take a closer look at some of these guns. Again, as you can see, the number of markings are all over the place. Is in your top cover, and what it does is rotate your belt, or not rotate, but rather pull your belt in and help feed the gun. This notch in the bolt interacts with this guide rail here, and that's what actuates it back and forth. So originally these MG34s were open bolt guns, so when you pulled the handle to the back, it locked the bolt back in this position, and then the handle would not reciprocate, it would just push forward. Well, of course, with modern gun laws, they consider that too readily converted to machine guns, so no new open bolts have been made since the early 80s. These fire from the closed bolt position, which means that you have to cock the firearm, the bolt returns back here, the striker system hits the back of the bolt, hitting the firing pin, setting off the cartridge, and then that will then recoil back, feeding a new round to the chamber, and then it'll be ready to fire in the closed bolt position. Obviously, this is not advantageous for a machine gun. You want the open bolt feature so it helps circulate more air through here. However, these are semi-automatic only. I don't think you could pull the trigger fast enough to burn one of these things out. The original cyclic rate was about 900 rounds per minute. A little bit slower than the MG42, but still fairly fast. Let's take a look at this top cover. And again, markings are all over the place, different from gun to gun. One thing that TNW does do, this receiver is all newly manufactured. They have to do this in order to fit all the semi-auto compliant parts in there. So what that means is TNW and most manufacturers who build semi-automatic guns from full auto guns have to modify the receiver in such a way that full auto parts will not readily be accepted. That's just to prevent people from converting things, and that's what the ATF wants. As you can see, TNW does have its markings on here, but they went through the extra effort of adding some German markings on the guns as well. There's some ones on the other side as well. The early guns had a pretty stiff, horrible trigger, something like 15 pounds. You would actually really need to use both triggers in order to pull it back. On the real gun, one of these is for semi-auto, the other one's for full auto. Because of the heavy weight of the early guns, you would really need to use 2 fingers to pull back and fire the gun. The last couple years that we've been getting these things, the trigger pull has really been improved. So much so that I've seen them as low as 10 pounds, and they function very well, and it's comfortable to shoot with 1 finger. This is your booster cone assembly. The way you remove it is you lift up this latch, and then this spins off. And that's what helps generate some of the recoil for the barrel to move back and forth and cycle your firearm. And here is one that was taken off of our shop's gun. This gets filthy dirty very easily. This takes a lot of time to clean out properly. Usually you have to use a carbon scraper or something special for it. So here's your barrel. This is again out of our shop's gun. This is the barrel extension. You could actually buy just the extension and then have it mounted onto certain guns. And as we can see, let's get into focus here. They've got all sorts of different kinds of markings and serial numbers usually on them. If this was a full auto machine gun, I would definitely advise you to go out and buy spare barrels. Usually after a couple hundred rounds of continuous fire, you would split the gun in half and then swap in a fresh barrel. But again, being semi-auto, I don't think we're going to ever abuse these things to that point. We don't have our shroud again, but you could see this is the locking part right here. This is actually the pivot for the front half of the gun that slants over, exposing the barrel where you could pull it out, and then you snap it back in, locking it to the front half of the receiver here. Fairly complicated. This is your Recuperator Rod. This is a long rod that runs inside the receiver with a spring in here, and that snaps your barrel forward. It's part of the operating mechanism on the MG34s, very similar to the MG42 as well. A note about the wood stocks. These are all used surplus that have got to be 60, 70 years old. Many of them have been in poor storage. However, they're good hard wood. They do have some signs of being arsenal repaired at some point or worked over. So you can see that one's got a plug. Almost all of them exhibit some kind of repair or split like this. However, the stocks are so beefy that that split right there doesn't seem to have gotten any worse. We put one of these on a full auto transferable MG34 and have run probably 1,000 rounds on it. We saw no difference in the split. Seen some people fill this with some kind of epoxy and then sand it smooth, Gorilla Glue, whatever. It works just fine as is. I wouldn't really worry about that whatsoever. It kind of gives the thing some character as well. Functionally, it's perfectly fine. Now, we do sell, and so does TNW, newly manufactured hardwood stocks for these. All you would need to do is remove some of the metal hardware, swap out your new stock, which may require a little bit of minor fitting, and it'll be just fine. So, the buttstock here has a tab. And that tab is right here underneath the gun. In order to take the buttstock off, push this tab in, it turns to the side, and then it pulls out. There's a secondary tab right here that holds this collar in, and that piece looks like so. That's this right here. See? What you do is, just like the buttstock, this part spins off and comes out. Now, when the gun is fully assembled, this long recoil spring and your bolt assembly are in here, and that's what holds it in place. So if you want to disassemble your gun, be careful that this is going to be under spring tension, and when you go to rotate that out, you want to slowly ease it off and not pop it in your face. It sucks. So here we go. Here's just another example. This is our shop's gun. This gun's probably had a couple hundred rounds through it. We had some hiccups in the very beginning with it. We sent it back to TNW, no questions asked. They fixed the problem and then returned it to us in extremely record time. So what it was is, right here you see this kind of throat area. It needed to be pulled further up to allow the rounds to feed properly. We were getting 2 to 4 rounds at a time, and then we would get a stoppage where the round would hit the very front of the receiver there in the feed tray. They took care of it for us. It was great. We've run a couple hundred rounds through it problem-free. No fail to fires, no fail to ejects, no fails to feed. It's just wonderful. So, see if I can do this one-handed. Kind of show you, see how that rotates. Now it's got some interrupted threads. That's where it grabs the back of the receiver, which is also partially threaded, and that locks in place there. And then your bolt is right here. So to pop off your feed tray, simply kind of lift it up and out. This hooks onto that, and you've got a spring on the inside of the feed tray, so when it locks down, corresponds to the slot that's cut here, and that's kind of what keeps that in place. The top cover parts here, this is for keeping your belt down and your rounds down, and again, this reciprocates. Alright, now to pull the top cover off, this pin moves back and forth. Let's see if we could do this one-handed. There we go. Comes out. See right there. and the corresponding pin right there. You can remove this part off the feed tray if you like, or sorry, the top cover slides right off if you want to get in there and clean it. So our bolt, because there's no barrel, decided to rotate. That's actually how it would lock into the front of the barrel. You can see it's got these teeth right here, and that it's got corresponding teeth in the back of the barrel into the extension. The bolt has to be completely locked into the barrel to release the firing pin. It's a built-in safety. A lot of your fail-to-fire problems are because that bolt hasn't locked into the back of the barrel. Or this recuperator rod right here isn't pushing the barrel forward. What happens is the second you start pulling back on the bolt handle, the bolt comes back and then unlocks out of the barrel. You should hear a click. It's actually a pretty loud snap, and that's that recuperator pushing up against the barrel. And if you don't hear that and you're not getting successful fires, that's probably because something's dirty and not locking up. That seems to have been about 75% of any issues we've had with these guns, is just they're damn dirty. So here's our modified semi-auto bolt. A full auto bolt will not fit in this gun. You can see this is our semi-auto part right here. This is what's been modified. Essentially, this is what fires the gun now. In the lower receiver, you can see this flap goes up when you pull the trigger. That actuates this part, and that's what fires the gun. And then when it resets through recoil, you're ready to fire again. It's a pretty simple design. It's ingenious, actually. Anytime you're converting a open bolt full auto gun to closed bolt semi-auto, you're gonna run into some issues. You're essentially doing the opposite of what the gun wants to do, so they're going to be a little finicky. But generally, once you get them cleaned up nice and tuned in to the right kind of ammo and the right belts, they run awesome. One other thing I'm going to mention, when you get your gun from TNW, it's going to be covered in this brown or gray, white, chalky crap. This is some sort of old preservative that's been on here forever. It cleans off perfectly fine. It doesn't leave any residue. It doesn't mar the finish underneath. Don't worry about it. You do need to take the gun completely apart and clean it. Otherwise, it's not going to run out of the box. These guns, they're super tight. I'd like to break this open for you and show you how it works. However, it is extremely tough with all the gunk in it. I wouldn't even attempt it till you've cleaned it out. So I wanted to show you the reverse side of the MG34. Right here, as I mentioned, this is more of that chalky white residue crap. It comes right off. If you were to split the gun in half, this is the lever you push. See, it moves. And as you can see, the seam right here, the gun would flip over like that. And then that gives you access to the barrel. You can pull that out. Again, highly recommend, before even attempting to fire this gun, you take it completely apart, you clean it, put it back together. It wouldn't hurt to know and learn how this firearm functions anyways. Again, here you go. Take the booster off, take the bipod off, just clean everything. So here is our safety. This is tab right here. So in order to switch this gun to safe, you push it in and then down. Now this will prevent you from being able to cock the firearm or fire it. There you go, that's it. Then here again is our double stage, two-stage trigger, full auto and semi and full auto on one trigger system. It's pretty cool. The Germans like that sort of setup. There's several submachine guns that had something very similar. The Steyr AUG, made in the 70s, has that sort of setup, except it's a single trigger. You pull it back a certain amount for semi and then all the way back for full auto. Very cool. So if you want yourself a genuine World War II style MG34 machine gun that you can actually fire and shoot, these are the only ones really in town to buy. They come with a warranty from TNW. Customer service is great from the guys. I like dealing in their product. I like selling these things a lot. They're a ton of fun. If you'd like to get one, see us on Facebook, Uprising Firearms, or our website, uprisingfirearms.com. You could always give us a call at the shop. It's 928-713-1593. And the benefit of buying one of these from us is you're supporting a small business. I'm the owner-operator, and you're not buying someone else a new speedboat. I do this so I can acquire other firearms, rare stuff, and kind of help document and catalog a lot of the collection that I'm going to be putting out on video. We also offer a lot of support for these things. If you do decide to buy one from us, you call us anytime, day or night. I'll walk you through the steps to clean it, take it apart.